Okay, after the quiz yesterday, guys, I asked that you factored those 4 quadratic expressions. And I saw everybody do it before they left, and you all had the right answers. Okay? Remember, when you're factoring, you think what multiplies to the constant and adds to the b value. Okay? So you got x plus 2 and x plus 2, but because they're the same, you could write it as what?
X plus 2 squared.
X plus 2 quantity squared, right? Okay, this one was what?
X plus 3
X 3 quantity squared.
X
X minus 5 quantity squared. X minus 1 quantity squared. Are there any questions on those? Okay, those are all perfect square trinomials. Okay, when you guys probably hear perfect squares, you're thinking, oh, that's like the number 4, or 9, or 16, or 25, or 36, or 49. Those are perfect squares, right? And why are those perfect squares?
because they multiply by each
Something multiplies by itself to get those, right?
Yeah.
49 is a perfect square because
other.
7 times 7 is 49. 25 is a perfect square because 5 times 5 is 25. Those are all perfect squares. These are also all perfect squares. Okay? X squared plus 4x plus 4, that is a perfect square because x plus 2 times itself makes that. X squared plus 6x plus 9, that quantity is a perfect square because x plus 3 times itself makes that. Have I made the connection between numerical or number perfect squares to quadratic perfect squares? Okay? Alright, so that was the whole goal of this, to help you to see what a perfect square.
Juniors and seniors, Dordt College representative is in the East Dining Hall at this time. Juniors and seniors, if you're interested in meeting with Dordt College, there's a representative in the East Dining Hall at this time.
You gotta go, you gotta go. Okay? Alright, so these are all perfect square trinomials. Okay? Alright, so why? Alright, what is the purpose of those perfect square trinomials? Why was I showing you that yesterday? Okay? You don't need to write this part down, just follow along. Okay? You've seen a problem similar to this year. X squared minus 10x plus 7 equals 0. Okay? And I said go ahead and solve for x. And you've kind of been taught 2 methods. Factoring and square roots. I can't use square roots on this guy because there's an x squared term and there's just an x term. So because of that, we would try factoring, right? What would happen? It doesn't work. Because can you think of numbers that multiply to 7 and add to negative 10? No. There aren't any. Okay? As much as I like factoring, and I will always, always, always try to solve every polynomial by factoring first because it's the quickest and easiest method, sometimes factoring doesn't work. So we have to have other ways to solve quadratic equations in case factoring doesn't work, and in case square roots don't work. Factoring and square roots are the easiest. Unfortunately, they don't work every time, so I need to teach you another way that would be able to solve any type of quadratic. Okay? And that's what the goal is today. Now, I'm going to show you what I would do here. One thing I could do to solve this guy. I'm going to relate it back to our perfect squares. This is a perfect square, right? This x squared minus 10x plus 25, that's a perfect square. It's x minus 5, or x minus 5 squared. So the problem is, on the problem that I just showed you, that's not a 25, right? If it was a 25, then I'd have a perfect square. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that 7 to the other side. Again, you do not need to write this down. I will show you later on and talk you more through it, but I'm going to just go pretty quick as to why I'm doing this, okay? So I didn't like that 7. It's not a perfect square. So I'm going to get rid of it. Okay? What number needs to be here in order for this to be a perfect square? Positive 25, right? Okay? So if I go ahead and put a plus 25 here, that's okay as long as I keep it balanced and put a plus 25 here, right?
Hang on, why are you putting 25?
What did I want?
Perfect.
I wanted a
Oh, wait.
perfect square, right? I want something that is a perfect square. And the reason I want something that is a perfect square is about what I'm ready to show you, okay? But that's why it's a 25, okay? X squared minus 10x plus 25, if I were to factor it, it would be what and what? X minus 5, x minus 5, also known as x minus 5 quantity squared. That's 18, right? Now solving for x is pretty easy. In order to solve for x, it might be helpful if I get rid of that. What can I do to both sides? Square root both sides. When I square root a squared, they cancel each other out, and all I have is x minus 5, right? When I square root the 18, I get positive or negative square root of 18. There's one more thing I need to do to get x by itself.
Add 5.
Add 5 to both sides. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 18 plus 5. I'm almost done. The square root of 18 can be reduced or simplified to 3 radical 2. Yep, 9 times 2, 3 radical 2. Okay? So my final answers are x equals positive or negative 3 radical 2 plus 5. There are the two solutions. Positive 3 radical 2 plus 5 and negative 3 radical 2 plus 5. Those would be the two solutions for this quadratic equation. And that method that I just showed you was solving by completing the square. And I'm going to go slower through that later on. I was just going to show you quickly though. This is a method I could use to solve a quadratic equation when it's not factorable. Are there any questions on the algebra that you just saw there? Again, I'm going to go through it slower later on. Okay. When I started this problem, I knew that 7 was the wrong number, right? 7 was the wrong number. Let's look back at all those perfect squares. Okay? I used this one because I knew you guys had done that one. Okay? If I hadn't used this one, how would I know what the right number is? What I'm asking you to do is look at the relationship. Between all those. Can anybody figure it out?
There's like
Sam?
our greatest harm.
Divide what by 2? Okay. Cut 6 in half. What's that?
3.
3.
3 times
3 times 3 is?
9.
9. So he said half of this value squared, right? Let's see if that always works. What's half of 4?
2,
Squared?
4,
Got it. Half of 6?
3.
Squared?
9,
Half of negative 10?
5,
Negative 5, but when you square it,
25,
25. Half of negative 2? Negative 1 squared? Positive 1. I'd say you got it. Nice job. Okay? If you want to know what number creates a perfect square, so if I gave you this and said, hey, what number would make this trinomial become a perfect square?
49,
Good. Somebody said 49, because what do you do?
7,
Cut that in half.
7,
Square. That's a perfect square. What would it be? What quantity squared?
7.
X plus 7. X plus 7, X plus 7, or X plus 7 quantity squared. Okay? X squared minus 12x.
36.
Will it ever be negative?
No,
Why not?
because when you square the square root,
Squaring anything makes it positive, right?
yeah.
Okay? Alright. Don't be afraid of fractions. Okay? What do we do with the 7? Divide it by 2. Watch. 7 divided by 2. Don't give me the decimal. You can do this in your head. 7 divided by 2 is 7/2, right? Divided by 2. And then we're going to square this. When you square a fraction, you square the top, you square the bottom. 49/4. You never had to get out a calculator, did you? You can cut 7 in half, put it over a 2. You can square 7 in your head, you can square 2 in your head, 49 over 4. Done. Okay? We can do this with a fraction. Anybody know what half of 5/6 is?
10, 12,
That would be equal, 10/12 would be equal to 5/6.
25.
That would be also equal to this. 5/12. Half of 5/6 is 5/12. Okay? When you're finding half of something, can't you multiply it by a half? What's half of 20? 10. Couldn't you take 20 times 1/2 to get that answer of 10? When you multiply this by 1/2, you're taking 5 times 1, so that's going to stay the same, and you're taking 6 times 2, so that's going to double, and you get 5/12. So half of 5/6 would be 5/12. Just double the denominator. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions? I'm seeing some people maybe not shaking their heads. Can I explain it differently? Half of 5/6 would be 5/12.
And then what do you answer?
So half of 5/6 would be 5/12, and then what do I got to do with that? Square it. So 25 over 144. Okay, that's definitely as hard as they would come. Okay?
So you won't see them as decimals?
So, no, we won't do any decimals.
Okay.
Nope. So, I want to get really, really good at this. On our unit practice, right below these 4 problems is a link where all you have to do is figure out what this number needs to be to make it a perfect square.
So set it equal to C.
Yep. So number 1, what's my answer?
36.
9.
C equals 9.
Sorry.
Because half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9, so C equals 9. No, you don't have to show any work.
Oh, really?
Okay? So, take about 10 minutes and do these problems. You're just going to get really good at it. Okay? I'm drilling it in. Okay? Go ahead.